the family, the daughter, the house, my son, like all, you know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
everything that I wanted, and I still couldn't stop using. And I didn't understand why.
Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Naist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Naist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. I know you guys hear me say it all the time, but I have a really special and amazing guest joining me today. All my guests are special and amazing, but today it's Jamie. So what I like to do, Jamie, is have you introduce yourself to my audience, who you are, what it is you do, and then let's have a conversation.
Awesome. So my name is Jamie. I am a woman in long-term recovery. Let's see, July 20th will be 10 years. So that's
Nice.
pretty exciting. Recovery has afforded me the ability to be a mom today, to be a business owner, to have a place to live, to sustain myself financially, and to be a part of a community, an amazing recovery community that makes a difference in people's lives. So,
Right. And I like that you said that community, right? Because a lot of the times, as you know, working with like newly sober people, they don't want anything to do with anybody, right? Like, leave me alone. I just want to get better so I can go back out and do. But we know that's a lonely road to try to go, in our case, get sober alone. Because if we're left with this thing and our, that little thing between our brain, that 6 inches between our brain is a lot of the time what gets us in trouble. But so share with the audience, like a little bit, like go back and talk about like where it started for you, like, growing up, when the addiction started. Like, you could talk about as bad as not bad as you want, but give them an idea. Like, because I here on the podcast, I like when for the audience to understand where we have come from as individuals, right? To show that resilience, right? Which the podcast is all about, and show people that you can come back and be stronger than ever, no matter what challenge you've gone through, especially my fellow recovering people. I love, my peeps, as I call them, right? And some are worse than others, but here's the thing. We didn't do it alone. And here's Jamie. Like she said, she's a mother. She's a business owner. She takes care of herself. Like, and Jamie, like, that wasn't even a question back when we were in our addiction, right? We were just scraping by to survive, to get the next high. But so explain that to the audience, what that looked like for you back when it all started, and what were what do you think caused it?
well, I definitely think that I learned coping skills very early. Growing up in a alcoholic household, my father and mother, they had me when they were like 15 years old. So I hold nothing against
Right.
them because at 44 as a mother, I can hardly handle it. So I can't imagine as at 15,
Right.
But yeah, it was very chaotic. I mean, we moved around a lot. My mom and dad didn't have a very healthy relationship, so that it gave me a skewed view of what love looked like. And because of the fact that they couldn't really handle, having children at that age, not being able to support themselves, and things like that, they didn't have the greatest communication skills. So it was a lot of, me kind of taking care of myself. My dad worked two jobs. My mom worked and went to school. I had a younger sister and brother, and I had to really like take care of them and bring them up as a child, right? So that was really hard. And then, my parents would fight a lot. There was domestic violence. There was abuse. My dad he had a bad temper, and when he drank, it was like you never knew what you were coming home to. Like, was I going to come home to the fun dad that wanted to play games and watch scary movies, or was I going to come home to, literally like a horror story in my house where he's smashing and breaking things and hitting my mom and all of these things. So it had me walking on eggshells, my whole life. I had this really weird fear of abandonment. Like I would think like when I got on the school bus to go to school, I really was like, am I gonna see them again? Like it was just this
Right.
like fear, and I don't know where it came from or what happened, but the way that I learned to cope with that was through escape. And escape was my first addiction. So I would escape in books, I would escape in video games, I would escape in food, anything to just get out of reality. So that's really kind of where it started. And that was at a very young age. I mean, I was reading 120, 130 page books, one a day in sixth grade, like just to not have to deal with the world, and I
Right.
would, I moved so much. I went to 12 different schools by the time I got to eighth grade. And so every time we would move to a different place, I would kind of try to come up with like a new version of myself because I don't know if everybody is like this, but I find that most people who have struggled with addiction have trouble like feeling comfortable in their own skin. So
Yeah.
imagine like that on top of having to move and make new friends in, elementary school, middle school. And those are just such hard times to try to have connection and support, and also not wanting to tell anybody what's going on at home. Everybody was like, is your family like in the military or something? Why do they move all the time? I was like, no, they're just, it's just chaotic, so.
Right. And that's got to be tough growing up, right? Because as they say, those are your formative years, right? Right. And there's something like I'm sure you've heard this like in meetings, right? Monkey see, monkey do, right? That's where we learn growing up in our brains as they're forming, thinking this is normal because this is happening every day, right? Where and you don't have anybody stepping in going, Jamie, that's not normal, right? You're the oldest child, but you're not, you shouldn't be parenting your brother and sister, right? But like you said, 15 years old, like I think about that too when it comes to my sister, right? She passed away about 8, 9 years ago now, but I hear story like they were both 16 when they got married, and my sister was like a chip off my mom's block, right? Like strict and well, when you're raising 5 boys, you got to raise them with like an iron fist, but there's times, and then like I'm wondering where she learned that, and then I look at my mom and I'm like, oh, that's where she learned it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And understandably, right, when you're a single mother, you gotta. Anyway, I mean, we could dive into all these things that happen, right? But in reality, that's part of your trauma, seeing the things that you saw when you grew up, right? You're trying to adjust and make friends, right? That's the chameleon we become when we're in our active addiction. Like, because
Mm-hmm.
I think about my days in high school. I didn't have a bad time, but right, like I wanted to fit in so bad because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. But if I was with the stoners, I fit in because I smoked. You know what I mean? Or if I was a jock because I was a jock, I fit in with the jock or the heavy metal guys, right? And I had friends in every group, so that if I felt uncomfortable in one, I'd just say I'll go over here, right? Little did I know that's like the start of my addiction. Is for me was not being able to go, I'm comfortable in my own skin. You said it perfectly, right? Because we don't feel comfortable in our own skin, like you, and even in our own families. And I didn't come from a background like that, but we had such a big family. It was like I didn't relate with my older siblings because they were way older, right? And they were out of the house, and then mom worked all the time, and me and the little brother were doing our own thing. But at the same time, there was a lot of good things going on. Right? A lot of cousins and brothers. They did try to support us the best they could. But what I'm getting at here, everybody, is like you hear Jamie's background, and if you hear mine, it's like two different, but we do the same thing because we have similar situations, how we're feeling about ourselves as we're growing up on the inside, right? And trying to find our way, especially as like you said, elementary going into junior high, you're going into your teen years, and that's really when I think the hormones and everything is starting to change, and your worldview starts to get skewed, right? And then you're thinking, well, this is normal, then this is must be the way I need to be. So, as
Mhm.
you get into junior high, high school, when did it really start to take off for you, your addiction, where like now it wasn't just the escape with books and stuff. You found like the drugs and alcohol, and you said, oh, like me, it was when I took that first drink or that first hit of the joint. I'm like, oh, I have arrived. I'm cool now. I feel like I'm a part of the cool crowd, right? And when did that happen for you, where you knew there's, and because thinking back myself, that was part of the red flag I should have heeded when I was like comfortable with that going, right? Not knowing that was going to lead to more and more and more, right? As you go ahead. I just,
Absolutely. Yeah, and the honestly, the first red flag for me should have been me trying to be in relationships. Now, and this is still even before substances, because I would be so I would get be very codependent and like so fixated, like if I liked a guy, on like what he thought of me, and this like rejection issues and things like that, where I would almost be like obsessive, you know what I mean? Like they have to accept me, they have to like me, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I had this like huge gaping hole inside of me that I just wanted to be loved. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be significant, and I thought that like if I found that I would be complete, right?
right.
And then eventually, when I did get to high school, I got to stay in my high school for all 4 years, which was really cool. So I got to actually make friends,
Oh, good.
and be involved in activities because my sister and brother were older. Because before that, I literally had to go to school and come home. I was not allowed to go hang out with friends, do anything involved in school, because I had to take care of my sister and brother. So it wasn't until like ninth, 10th grade that I was actually able to do anything else other than that, as far as like I think I did like theater, and I did some different like after school clubs or
Right.
whatever. I was in like chorus, and then so I met a group of friends, and they accepted me for who I was, and we were always together, and we would go to parties, and we would hang out, and we laughed. There was like joy and laughter. It wasn't like just this heavy, sad stress,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chaos. And they were drug dealers, and that is just where like I fit in, and they were my best friends. And so that's kind of how it started, and it was just it started out regular high school stuff. It was fun. It was smoking weed, doing mushrooms, drinking those weird tall colored blue beers or whatever that made you throw up, like they were probably boons or something. I'm like showing my age here. um they were, you know what I mean? It was just fun, like not a big deal. And but I remember the first time like that it actually clicked in my brain, where I realized that, hey, there's something to this, right? Like I remember I went to a party, and there was all these it was like a big party, so there was all these like people, and there was like the popular people, and I had like so much social anxiety, which I still struggle from a little bit today. But like I just wanted to be accepted, and I was nervous, and I just wanted people to like me. And after they were passing around some substances still on the high school level, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden something in my brain clicked, and it was like I was funny, and I was charming, and people liked me, and I didn't feel scared anymore, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for my whole entire life. And that was really the start of it. And I think that was in 10th or 11th grade. 11th grade, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate with that, right? Like growing up and just wanting to fit in. And like in junior high, Well, I'm short. I'm only 5'8", right? But I always felt different because I was like the shortest kid around my friends, right? And they would bully me, and then that clicked. That was something that you probably can relate to. It was like, well, I'm not gonna let that happen, so I'll fit in any way I can, right? But like you, I think it was probably 10th grade when I'm hanging out with older kids because my friends are all a year older. And then I live on a block where a few of my friends are all 2 years older. And that's just like the thing that every weekend, where's the keg party, right? Like,
Hmm.
and yeah, and we'll talk about that because that's kind of embarrassing. But there's a story about when I was a sophomore, and one of the prettiest cheerleaders, right, comes to check on me because I'm passed out on the floor outside of a party, checking on me. But anyway, I'm not going to get into it because, but I'll tell you after because I don't want to gross the audience out. But anyway, I understand that trying to fit in and find your way. And when it clicks, you're just like, this is it, right? Like by my senior year, I'm smoking pot every day. Of course, like I'm good during sports, but weekends, like the Friday night game's over, where the first thing is like, yeah, I'm going to go change, but where's the parties? Like, where's the kegger parties going to be in? Um, and, some of those would be like, especially my senior year. I don't know. Mine hit me later, but like when I'm the only guy up, right? And I'm going from friend to friends who we've been all doing like cocaine and you know what I mean? And I'm knocking on windows. Hey, are you guys still up? And they're looking at me like, Max, the party was over a long time ago. Like, you need to go home, right? Like,
Hmm.
not noticing those red flags where it was like that whole saying that you probably heard in the rooms, right? 1,000 wasn't enough and one was too much. And just get me going. And I'm that guy. But, as I look back, right, you've studied addiction, I'm sure, because you've been in the biz and you work with people. Like, there's trauma, no matter how big or little, that can be connected to, and like in your case, you've just explained, like growing up in an alcoholic family, right? Mom and dad are, biting each other and, you know, like you said, not knowing if dad was going to be the dad where he wants to play with you and have fun, or like you said, you know what I mean? That's traumatic for a child to walk into, and then having to be put in that position where you're like the caretaker for your siblings when all you are is a kid yourself and you just want to go find your way and feel connection, right? Because I've said it before, and I'm sure you've seen this TED Talks where that British journalist Johan Hari talks about what we think about addiction is all wrong, right? So at the end of his talk, he says, "What do you think is the opposite of addiction?" Right? And you can hear people in the background in the crowd going, "Recovery, sobriety," and he's like, "No, it's connection." Right?
Yes.
Right? Because
Hmm.
that's why I mean, for me, I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm sure you're going to go, yeah. That's how I stayed sober when I started connecting with people that have been through similar things, even worse, right? But were showing me how to stay sober, not by themselves, but you go into a meeting and you're like, wow, I wouldn't hang out with you, but I wouldn't hang out with you, right? If we were doing it, but you're in this meeting and then you become friends, and those are like the bonds you can't break. But so let's go back. So like as you going through high school, right? And I'm sure you're like me, it didn't slow down, right? Like it's gaining traction, your addiction. What happens? So like once you graduate high school, when did you really like tell yourself? Because I know I had moments many times, like I just gave you, where I'm like, I should have stopped, but I didn't hear, I chose to ignore the signs. And as I got older and it progressively got worse. So what were those moments like for you where you had moments where you looked yourself and went, Jamie, this is getting crazy. And then the next day you're like, it'll be different, right? How we do it, right? Like, oh, I feel I'm
Yeah,
all right. I'm okay. I'm going to do it again.
for sure. I mean, it was just, the lifestyle. And I had some other things mixed in too because I was so I spoke a little bit about like escape with food. So growing up with like disordered eating, right? And having like real bad body dysmorphia, self-esteem issues, self-worth issues. I was always like the chubby kid. I come from a big Italian family where there's big Italians, my whole family.
and everybody's a foodie because they love to eat. Like, right? I love Italian food, but I know I
Yes.
have many friends who are Italian families that like you can't, you have to tell them I'm good. Like if I
Yeah.
eat anymore, I'm gonna, but thank you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there it's like, manja, manja, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Like, um, so like having that, you know what I mean? Like, as I went to like different substances, and I went through like all the phases, right? Like even, graduated high school, did very well, went to college, put myself through college and worked 2 jobs while I was going through college. And so it was still very functional, even though I probably wouldn't have had to work 2 jobs if I wasn't supporting a functional addiction.
Right.
Right. But I still wasn't at that point where I was like doing things really, you know what I
Right.
mean? So, um, yeah, I went through this like, raving phase, and like went to all these like rave club parties, and then started, getting into like the cocaine and stuff like that. And that was like big for me because when I did cocaine, I didn't eat. And when I didn't eat, I lost weight.
Right.
So it was almost like I would like want to get off the cocaine, but then I would like gain some weight. So I would go back on it. You know what I mean? It was
Right.
like just like a really like sick cycle. And then you mix in the codependent toxic relationships that I'm in and that I'm holding on to for dear life, because no matter what, we don't leave each other,
Right.
because that's what I saw growing up, right? No matter what. No
Right.
matter what they do, no matter what you're enduring, no matter how bad you're getting treated, or you're treating someone else, you know what I mean? Like, and so it was just like this terrible, like chaotic cycle of it. And it just kept going. And I went into, um, ended up, you know, um, having my son, and I went through a period of not using. I'm not going to call it recovery. I'm not going to call it sobriety, because I didn't do anything like that. I was still wherever Jamie went, there she was. There was no change. I did well for like the first year, and then one day I was like, oh, I think I was waitressing at like an Applebee's, like at the around the bar area, and we would have these parties on the weekends, and there was this group of people that would come into the bar, and they would have cocaine. And one day, one of them started talking to me, and they gave me some, and I was like, I can just do this one time, it's been so long, you know what I mean? And it was like, bam, off to the race. Like it was just like I had never even skipped a beat. It was so crazy. Except this time now, then I had a baby, you know what I mean, with me.
Right.
And so it was harder because I didn't sleep, but I was tired and I had to take care of a baby, and it's not, you know what I mean? I wasn't a good mom, you know what I'm saying? And it went
Right.
from cocaine to smoking crack to, you know what I mean? My son's banging on the bathroom door because he wants his mom. And I'm like, no, like, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
over, you know what I'm saying? Taking care of my kid, and the television, the Disney Channel, or, man, I can't remember what it was. It was like that little red car. uh that she used to love that, and like that was what was raising him, you know what I
Right.
mean, the cartoons on the TV. And it's like, man, like what am I doing? And it put me into positions where I kind of had to do some other things to make money, right? Because I needed more money. And so I went into working at strip clubs, and I went into escorting, and all of these things, got busted in like a huge prostitution sting on the news. They blasted me on the news for like 3 days straight. It was so embarrassing. Got kicked out of school. I was going to college at the time, got kicked out of school. The day before my graduation, I got arrested, and it was a whole thing. Had to do like a probation and it was just one like bad, ridiculous choice after another. Got myself in some real bad situations where I got sexually assaulted. I mean, had guns pulled on me, you know what I mean? And like, it's so wild. And like, none of those times was I ever like, maybe I should stop doing drugs. Like, never
Right. I can,
in any of those.
right. Yeah. See, and that's what I want, right? People to understand about addiction, right? Because you hear the time or time after time after time. Is it a disease? No. Is it a choice? Yes. Right. We know it's a choice, that first one.
Right.
Right. And then once someone who is prone to addiction makes that decision, then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a matter of life and death. At least that's the way our brains tell us, right? Like, I got to get
Absolutely.
high, right? The choice flies out the window. And yeah, I'm relating to your story too, because I went from by being in the Navy, right, getting out. I was my getting married, having our first child, everything. I got the white picket fence, 3 kids, right, and life's wonderful, right? I'm working at in a big Fortune 500 company, right, and and then going from that, like what you're saying, like to the streets in a year's time, right? And then those moments, like you said, I remember when my friend had dropped me off at a motel, right? I said, "Oh, I'm gonna get us our thing and just hang out here. I'll be back." Right. Well, I'm in a room with like 4 or 5 other guys that are tattooed from the head down, like ex-convicts, right? Like, and at the time, I didn't have a shaved head, right? I didn't have any tattoos. And they're giving me that look, like this guy looks like a narc, you know what I mean? Like, he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't belong here, you know? And but I was like heading into my addiction full steam ahead. And I remember grabbing a needle and doing it because the guy said, "Here, like, do it. Like, you're going to prove to me right now that," and I did it so quick without hesitation. They all pretty much were like, "Yeah, this guy can't be like, yeah, no, that doesn't happen." You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're one of us, but you don't look like, but, um,
Yeah.
and walking out of there, and I'm sure I did back then what went to myself, like, Max, like, stop what you're doing. But did it happen? No, right? We get to the
Mm-mm.
places where we swore we would never do, right? I'm sure you did. I know I did. Oh, I'm never gonna get in trouble, right? I'm never gonna go to those seedy motel rooms that because I live where I grew up there on Beach Boulevard by Knightsbury Farm, right? From one freeway to the X to the other one was known at the time for its prostitution, its gang, the gang presence on there, the drugs, right? Like there's an Anaheim police substation across, which used to be one of those trailer parks back in the day, right? Where it was so scary. I remember when I first walked into that place, like I was like, wow, like you could just feel you get goosebumps, like I shouldn't be here. But then the addict brain goes, nah, it's gonna be all right. Right. And it shuts down all your rational thinking. We're like, that fight or flight when that time I should have probably fled, you know?
Right.
Right. And we go to the depths, like in your case, what you did. And like, I want you to make the audience understand, like, no matter what you tried, like when you're that deep, until you reach that moment, right? Like we all know, we all have our moments where we go, I'm done. I'm going to do whatever it takes. But right. Cause I'm sure people are listening, like, how did she get to that? Right. Like, and then how do you get out of that? Right. Like you said, the news is blasting you all over the new, the media is blasting you all over the news. And you can't probably walk outside without someone pointing a finger going, oh, that's that Jamie girl over there. Like, you don't want, you know what I mean? Like, and that's one of those things that either
Hmm.
keeps you in your addiction or you can slowly pull yourself out and go, and I'm going to change this. How did that go for you? Because I just want people to understand, because you're going to hear from Jamie now, like you can change the direction of your life, whether you're addicted to sex, food, alcohol, drugs, or whatever, when you just finally can make a decision to go, I need help. But talk about
Hmm.
that, Jamie, because I think it's important that people know that even at the probably one of your worst times in your life, right? you've probably came to a point where you said, I'm done doing this. Like, I gotta figure something out for not only for myself, but for my child.
Right, absolutely. And that, that happened when I had my daughter actually. So
Okay.
my son and daughter are about 6 years apart. So me and my kid's dad got back together. And so it was like I thought I was gonna have a second chance, right? Because filled up with guilt and shame, mom guilt, I'm sure dad guilt as well, is like the worst, right? Like, and so me and my kid's dad get back together. My drug use, it had went down because I had gotten off of like the cocaine, the crack, all this stuff or whatever. And when I was escorting, I had made a connection with a girl, and she didn't use drugs. She had an escorting company. She didn't use drugs. That was not, she was kind of one of these like in Atlanta, like at the high class, like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so there was no drugs, like you had to be like on point, you know what I mean? And so I had kind of gotten out of the drug use, but I had also made some connections with some doctors, and this is during like the time where everybody's the doctor shopping, you're going to 2-3 doctors. So I had a group of people, and we had this little pill ring, like selling pills, buying pills, going to the doctor. I'll hook you up with this price if you give me a ride to the doctor. And
Right.
and I even made a connection actually like with a doctor where I would go there during lunch and sleep with him, and he would give me prescriptions for Oxycontin,
Right.
and my girlfriends, so it was very lucrative, at the time. And one day I was like, oh, what are these things, because I was never really into like the pill thing or whatever. And so I started, just taking the little, the hydrocodone, like the Vicodin, you know what I mean? And then like a Percocet here and there or whatever. And then, me and my kids dad get back together, and I'm off the out of the bathroom, off the crack pipe, right? Like
Right.
I'm looking a lot better. I'm healthy. I got a car. You know what I mean? I'm doing better. He's doing better. And we get a little house we're renting. We get pregnant with my daughter, and I'm just like, wow, I'm getting a second chance at life. I'm getting a second chance to be a mom. I'm getting a second chance to have my family. Like, this is amazing. But what I didn't realize is I didn't know that pain pills were addictive, first
Right.
of all. I didn't know that your tolerance goes up, over time. So, I had a prescription for like a low dose Percocet, like from my OB even, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it wasn't, but one day I didn't have any, and I was like, man, I don't feel good. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, do I have the flu? Like, what is this? Like, and I didn't know about like pill sickness or anything like that. And and so then like I was like, oh my goodness, like I have to get, so then I got some or whatever, and like I felt better, and then realized, oh my goodness, like I have like a dependency on these things, you know what I mean, with it, with
Right.
an addictive brain, right? Compulsive addictive
Right.
brain. um and so yeah, it just, I stayed on the pain pills, and this is through my pregnancy, right? Now I started getting real nervous because now I'm doing Dilaudid, I'm doing I'm doing the little blue pills, which I wanted to just marry these Roxy 30s. Like I was like, if I can marry this pill, I don't need anybody or anything for my whole entire life. All I need is me and this little blue pill, and I will be in heaven, right? It was like the
Right.
love of my life. That was how deep it was. And at 7 months pregnant, I came out to my OBGYN like, hey, I know you gave me this prescription. I have these little, Percocet fives or whatever, but like, I've been taking more than I'm supposed to. And I'm really concerned about, my daughter. And she was like, well, we'll just, maybe we'll have to keep her in the NICU, just to watch her, under surveillance, make sure she's all right. And I'm sure it'll just be fine. Of course, I'm not going to tell her the magnitude that I'm taking 8 pills a day of,
Right.
you know what I mean? Whatever I can get my hands on. Right. And so when I had my daughter, um, they took her from me right away, and she had to stay in the NICU for 6 weeks
Wow.
to be stabilized and detox off of pain medication through phenobarbital, which is an anti-seizure medicine,
Yep.
and morphine. And it was devastating to me because I couldn't wrap my brain around what was wrong with me. Like, why could I not stop using? Like, I just had the, the family, the daughter, the house, my son, like, all, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, this is
Yeah.
everything that I wanted, and I still couldn't stop using. And I didn't understand why. And now I know it's because I was trying to do it by myself, right? Like, I wasn't admitting to people like I have a problem. I was like, I can handle it. I got this. I got this,
Right.
and that was not the truth. But I'll tell you, like, within that, they ended up giving custody of my children to my mom. And I was so just like ashamed and like guilt ridden. I remember, I had a C-section. I was, 4 days out, went home and ate a bottle of Klonopin to try to, take myself out,
Right.
because I was in so much like guilt and shame, of like, how could I do this? Why am I such a terrible person? What is
Right.
wrong with me morally? What is wrong with me? Not understanding that this is, it's something that happens in your brain. Like, there's more to it,
Right.
than just the willpower to stop.
Right. Well,
Like,
as you know, it's not a moral issue that, right?
right.
Yes, we get addicted and we do some immoral stuff, right? Because
Hmm.
we cannot fathom life without our drugs. But like you said, the guilt and shame, right? Like that, those two emotions, right? In my opinion, because of personal experience and friends like you that have just said it, right? Like those are so intense. The only thing we know because we're addicted is we know that will shut those feelings off. So I'm going to do as much of that so I don't have to
Hmm.
feel those. You know what I
Right.
mean? Right? Because like you, like for me, when it got bad, right? Like I had a moment like where you've had moments where we got divorced, ex took the kids to Nebraska, and I hadn't seen my kids for 9 months. So my addiction, right? And there's other thing, but people in my audience have heard this story where my brother just got out of doing his first prison term. Long story short, I find a spoon and a needle and I tell him, "You're going to teach me how to use meth this way." And he's like, "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are," and we went back and forth. So when I found the needle and started doing methamphetamine intravenously, right? In my brain, as I remember back, it was like, I won't have to feel nothing because alcohol was starting to stop working. I couldn't drink enough, and I was doing
Hmm.
other things, but when I found that meth and alcohol together, it was like, phew. Like, yeah, I didn't end up. So she ends up coming back 9 months later, says the kids want to see me. I'm out in front of her house in a car I borrowed from my friend, right? It's a hot summer day, and I hear a knock at the window, and it's her and my three kids. And so you can imagine, right? I put the seat up and I'm sweating. And my ex is looking at me and just shaking her head. She's got this look, like I've said before, it was sadness/disgust. Like I don't even recognize you. Like what, how.
Hmm.
And I end up staying the night with the kids that night. And that would be the last time I see them for 9 years because my addiction just went like I can't how do you describe it? You know what I'm talking about. The guilt and shame was so bad. I was going to do
Hmm.
anything possible not to see them, right? Not because I didn't want to see them, but
Right.
I didn't want them to see me, right?
Right.
And if you go back and listen to what Jamie said about the doctor, she was going to, I say it before, and I probably won't make friends with doctors, but doctors are the biggest makers of addicts that I know of, right? Like, and I think some of it is not even by their own fault, but just not educating. Or if they do, then they're, you know what I mean? Like, you got this look like I got, like, I know some of them know this, right? Because they know it
Mm-hmm.
gets you coming back. But anyway, right? The strength of the medicines that are out there nowadays, right? Are, well, fentanyl. And I mean, look what's happening with that. We still have that
Right.
epidemic. I don't care what anybody says. Like, people are dying from that left and right. Um, so like you had, your mom's got your kids now. Like, what was that moment when you decided, okay, enough is enough, right? Like, when you, and like in my head, it was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I have my moment, but I want to hear yours. Like, when you said, okay, I got the house. Yes, my mom's got my kid, but this is not working for me anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't get up feeling like this anymore, because I know if you're anything like me, which I know as an addict you are, right? There's not enough drugs in the world sometimes to kill that shit. Like,
Mm.
you do it all, and you're like, it didn't go away. This, right? And you just explained that you
Mm.
went home and took a bottle of Klonopin, right? And like, and if that doesn't work, you're like, wow, this is not even working. Like, what do I do now?
Right. Right.
You're like, oh my God, like, I can't kill myself because, I
Uh-huh.
mean, this is like been awesome, but I want to hear from now where your bottom was, where you started to go, okay, it's upward and onward now. No matter what I got to do, I'm going to make sure I make one myself right so that I can be a mom. But because regardless, I would, when I got sober, it's like whether I saw my kids or not, I was going to stay sober after my last relapse. Like, and that's another, but I'll tell you about that another time. But you know what I mean? Like, I made a
Mhm.
decision where it was like, okay, God, you keep me sober. I'll do the work to stay sober no matter what comes my way. What was that moment for you?
So, I went through kind of like a few years. So I had my daughter in 2010. I didn't go into recovery till 2015. So there were still many years, but what that did do is it started I call it like the rotating door of jails, institutions, and detoxes after that.
Right.
And it was like I would go to detox and I would be like, okay, stay for a week, stay for 2 weeks, okay, I'm cured. Now I can use meth like everybody else, like
Right.
go go to jail, come out. Okay, now I'm cured. I'll go get a little job somewhere and I can just, use pain pills on the weekends or whatever, and I did everything that I could to try to control it. And I went about 8 times, 8 different times through detoxes or rehabs or whatever, only short period though, right? Because after about 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, I'm looking good. I'm better. I'm cured, right? Like still no recovery, but just got put a little bit of weight on, got the substances out. My skin's not yellow.
Right. Like, I'm good. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm good. But what it was actually for me, was I got arrested one night on a Tuesday night. I got pulled over. And man, I don't know. I guess I got rescued really, because man, I don't know how they found all those drugs like sewed into the lining of my purse. Like they were good. You know what I'm saying? Like they knew something. But I got arrested as Schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is just like a variety pack of everything, just a little bit.
Everything.
It wasn't like a lot. It wasn't. It was just a little of everything. And they were like, what are you doing with this? And I'm like, it's Tuesday. Like, what do you mean? And yeah, and I went to jail. The judge said to me, okay, you don't really have like a record or anything, but you have all of these substances. So we're gonna put you on a 4-year felony probation. Do you know what that means? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay, it means that for the next 4 years, you can't fail a drug test or get in trouble, or you're going to go to prison for 4 years. And that was when the light bulb clicked in my brain. And I said, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I proved it because within, 3 days of getting out, I was already getting high again.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid going to meet my probation officer, So luckily, I had a friend who called. She said, "Listen, I'm going to this sober living in Athens. She just got out of prison. We used to sell drugs together." And she was like, "I think you should come." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah." It was like my moment of surrender. You know what I mean? Like I was
Yeah.
like, just yes, yes, I will go, and so ended up going into a sober living campus in Athens, Georgia, which is like a UGA campus. But it was crazy. I walked into this house with there's 13 women. I was like, this is like a sober sorority. I've never seen anything like this before. It's so weird. But what was really cool about it was I had like my own bed, I had a dresser, I had a closet, I had a kitchen, and there was like food in there. There was a bathroom and a shower, and I had these women who were trying to do the same thing that I wanted to do. They wanted to reestablish relationship with their children and families. They wanted to become self-sustaining and get a career. They wanted to get off drugs, right? So I'm like, and they told me, listen, like we're gonna love you till you can learn to love yourself. And it was crazy to me, that these like women, there was other people, you know what I mean? Like it was wild to me. Like, where have you people been?
Right.
Like,
I know I can relate to that story, right? I mean, I remember walking into my first meeting after getting out of jail, right? And getting this hug from this sweet, late blonde haired lady that I'm still friends with. Like, she's, I think, 35 years sober, if not give or take a year, right? And I had to borrow sweats. And I tell this story all the time because to me, it's a reminder of where I came from, right? So when I got out of jail, I just had tank top, board shorts, and flip flops, right? Went in during the summer, came out, it was winter. You know what I mean? I'm like,
mhm,
so I had to borrow, the people that left stuff behind, like the whatever. And so I found a pair of sweats and I remember her hugging me and saying, welcome. But for me, it was like, what do you want from me? Like I stiffened up
yes.
like a board and I'm checking my pockets, which I had no pockets. And the house manager happened to see and he goes, Max, just go sit down. She has nothing you want, and she's all welcome, and I'm like, right. But for me, it was a little bit slower, right? Like there's people who tell me keep coming back and welcome, and we're gonna love you till you're like I heard the same thing. And I'm like, I don't even want to be a part of you lames. Like that's where my head was because that's not where I came from, right? Like, and when I went to court, I've said this before, like going to prison was almost like, okay, because I had no idea what NA or AA or any recovery 12 step
Mhm,
was or sober living or treatment. But 3 hots and a cot I can do. Like I'm learning how to do this
mhm,
very well, right? Like I'm blending in now. Like I'm one of the, I'm one of the
mhm.
homeboys and right. And then I look back and as I think about that, like, wow, right. But thank God I had a judge that gave me a third chance. But we won't get into that. But those moments, like you said, though, when you do realize mine was a little bit slower, right? Like I realized like these people actually care about me and want nothing from me except to stay sober and be happy, and then
Mhm.
pass it along, right, to the next person, right? I didn't get that. In the beginning, in order to keep it, you got to give away. Part of me in the beginning was like, I'm selfish. I want this all. Just keep me going, everybody, right? And then,
Mhm.
4 relapses later, I realized what they were talking about, like, and just going, okay, all right, God, you keep me sober. I'm going to do the work to stay sober. Right. And because of that, I get to be here with you and have this awesome conversation about your recovery journey. Right. And, right. And Jamie and I are not like promoting. I always have to say this, right? We're not promoting any 12 step, right? Whatever works for you, but there's something to the meetings, right? And being a part of a community where you feel a part of instead of apart from and
Mhm.
and there's some tools that you can use that help you stay sober, right? And Jamie and I are living proof we can live beautiful lives and drug-free lives and be happy and have those careers and family, right? she's a mother, I'm a father and a grandfather, and number 11 and 12 are about on their way for me, right? My daughter who's sober is going to have twins, and right. And so now you're doing meetings, right? And you're in a sober living campus, which I love that. I wish, see, like mine was cool because one side of the facility was all probation and parolees, right? And then the other side was people with insurance or out of town, right? Or coming in for treatment. And I remember when they stuck me on that side for one night, I'm like, I felt out of place. I'm like, no, you need to send me over there. But they're just, it's for tonight, Max, right? And I remember they sent me over there, whoops. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel at home. But like I'm going to tell you, some of the convicts that I knew that I was getting sober with were some of the best cooks I ever met. And I gained weight really quick.
Yep.
Hanging out with
Mhm.
them and going to meetings and going to, but so now you're at this place and you realize like, okay, I'm going to do this. What did that look like? Did you get a sponsor, start
Oh
working some
yeah.
steps and,
Yeah, I mean, they gave me the suggestions and I just did whatever they said, basically. Like they're like, okay, you need to go to meetings, you need to get a sponsor, you need to get a job, you can't wear that. Like you have to you have to wash your hair, like you need to you know what I mean? Like they had to literally
absolutely.
like reteach me everything because I still like we say, like wherever Jamie goes, there she is, right? So I had to like relearn this new thing. I remember, in my first meeting, there was a guy that walked in and he had like 90 days, sober. And I was like, lies, lies. Like, why are you people laughing? Why are you so happy? Like,
Oh,
these are paid actors. This is not real. Like I literally thought I was in like a whole conspiracy theory. Like, where is the cameras? This can't be real. It was deep.
oh yeah, I relate.
Real
I
deep.
first birthday I saw was a 10-year, and I was just like you. I was telling my guy, Sid, I'm like, they're lying, dude. There's no way this guy is taking 10 years. We can't even stay sober in jail, let alone 10 years. They're lying. I think they're just trying to hook us for some reason. Yeah, I was really like, that's what I was thinking. Like, 10, no way. You know what I mean? But yeah, I have to laugh because that's how I felt. Same way, like,
Mm-hmm.
where's the camera, right? Oh, you're on candid
Yeah.
camera. Psych. He didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was no way. I couldn't fathom it, you know what I mean? But it was probably until like somewhere where I had about eight, I think I had 89 days sober, and there was a meeting. One of the staff brought us to a meeting at this place called Advantage. It's a like crisis unit, right? That I had been in a couple times actually, and a detox. And so we went in there, and I got to tell my story, and I got to tell these people with the little rubber socks, I've been where you were, where you are right now, and I have 89 days sober. And he's like, and this is how I did it. And just seeing their eyes light up. And that was when I realized, oh my goodness, like there is purpose in my pain. There is a message in this mess. Like I knew that there was something to this, to me sharing my testimony, and then I got to walk out, which was incredible to me. Like I can't believe I'm just walking out, because when you stay in those places, you're like locked in, so I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
wow, I get to walk out, and I'm really blessed about my sober living, because it was a campus. There was like step up houses. I stayed there for 3.5 years.
Uh,
3.5 years. I mean, I was thriving. I started my business in sober living. Like, I have a faith-based massage therapy company. I was sponsoring women. I was so involved in all the things. I became a recovery coach. And then when I moved, I only moved like 5 driveways down to where the staff lived because it was on like a big, block
Right.
or whatever into these townhouses. And this, I still live here today. I still live in the townhouses, not part of the sober living, but it's just,
Right.
regular townhouses. But a lot of the people that I came up with live here still. You know what I mean? So it's community,
Yep.
it's being connected because if I was to go, I do have a relationship. I got to go out to eat with my mom and my daughter. My daughter still lives with my mom today. And I get to just, walk alongside and that's just, she lives about an hour away. That's where I came from. So I wasn't trying to go back there
Right.
to the old places. And I also was not trying to disrupt my daughter's life by bringing her somewhere when she's thriving and happy and she's a
Right.
cheerleader and she's living her best life.
Right.
And I get to, get to see her whenever I want. I get to talk to her. My son, he's 20. He's in college for welding. He lives with his girlfriend. He's doing good. He's a teenage boy, but what I mean? He's doing
Absolutely.
well.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And those are the things, like, those are our rewards, right? When we get to be
Mhm.
present, right? It's not the money, the places, the things, right? But it's
Right.
when we stay sober and we get to see our loved ones, right? We get to make those amends, living amends, where they're like, you know, I used to find out from my cousins, right? Like, hey, how come you weren't at a party? Like, we had a big party, and I'm like, what? My mom would tell them not to tell me and my little brother. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean. And but now, like, I helped my mom before she passed away. I stayed with her every Monday night at her sister. Those are the things that are truly the reward of being so, besides the physical part of not having to put a
Right.
drink or a drug, but like those things you cannot put a price on, right? Like, you get to be a part of your daughter's life, watch her cheer, right? Be a part of your
Mhm.
sons and do your business. And right. I mean, you and I could sit here and tell stories, right? Like, just the war stories, right? Would be an hour or two, and then get into the. But thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable and sharing your story, right? Thank you for being here. But I'm going to ask you some of the questions like I did before, right? Like, fearless. What does fearless mean to you now that you're sober, right? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Um, I would say like being fearless is being confident in God's plan for my life, knowing that it's good, so that like no matter what happens, I don't have to be, I have to be shaken. I know that everything's going to be okay no matter what, and having big vision. I want to add that having big vision because I feel like anything is possible as long as you can continue to put one foot in front of the other and continue to do the next right thing.
Absolutely. Like I said, some of the most successful people I know are recovering alcoholics or addicts. And right, some of them I say, you could adopt me anytime. Trust me, I'll stay sober. I'll be the best son you ever had. You know what I mean? Like, I see what you're doing.
Mhm.
I love it. So, next question, happiness. See, I put a Y in it. What does
Mhm.
happiness mean to you, and how does that show up in your life today?
Definitely real friends. I would say like real friends getting to celebrate people's victories. I'll tell you, I have an organization called Remnant Rescue. And so we go out onto the streets, it's boots on the ground outreach. We just had a thing here and we served 500 people, gave out 300 Bibles, and got 10 people placed into treatment that day. 2 women who were coming out of human trafficking. Two of those people have um like I have one woman and a organization like right down the street from me. So I'm like I'm like tracking with her, like walking with her. You know what I mean? She's been there
Yeah.
for 2 months. She's doing amazing. We've got another guy. He's, you know what I mean, doing amazing tracking with him. Our group is like tracking with him. You know what I mean? We've got two guys that we sent to a discipleship in Tennessee. You know what I mean? And we're tracking with them. So like getting to see like their victories, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
girl, she gets to see her daughter. She gets visitation with her daughter now. You know what I mean? And it's just, she's on a plan to get her daughter back. So being able to like celebrate other people's victories and knowing like just being able to like be part of that and serve, like that is, you know, that is happiness, like being obedient to and willing to like to do things maybe out of your comfort zone to help other people, and then getting to watch like the fruit from that, you know.
Right. As they say in the program, watching the lights come on in somebody's eyes. That's like huge. Right. Because you and I know too many times we see the lights go out and they don't get to come back and say sorry to their loved ones, or, you know, because they thought they could do it one more time.
Right.
That was awesome. Man, like I said, Jamie, we could keep going, but you know, it's been an amazing time, and thank you to take time out of your busy schedule. But if people want to get a hold of you, right, find out what you do, how they can help or support you, or just ask you questions, right? People out there going, God, I got to ask Jamie how she did it. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Jamie Tall on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, also TikTok, YouTube. And then I have an email, jamietallcoaching@gmail.com. I'm a certified peer specialist for addictive disease, certified through Georgia Council for Recovery. And if you are going to be in the Athens area, June 28th, we are throwing a huge event called Stronger Together, and it is uniting the recovery community. We say a kingdom divided cannot stand, and we don't care what craziness is going on in the world. The recovery community is going to stand strong and stand together no matter what. So we're going to have a concert and speakers and food and raffles and giveaways. It's going to be super fun. So,
I love it. I love it. Wow. Thank you for that, Jamie. Again, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time, but you're not quite off the hook just yet. Now I get to ask you my favorite question I ask of all my guests, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice you could give our audience today to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
I would say, get to know your higher power and surround yourself with people that have futures that you want that your future to look like.
Love it. Right. That's kind of like that saying, right? If you're the direct result of the 5 people you hang out with most, you're going to be the 6th. Right. So like you, in our case, you know, we want our 5 people to be way ahead of us so that we can strive to get there. You heard that, everybody. See, that happens in every walk of life, right? If you want to change, you gotta find the people, the community that are going to not tear you down, but bring you up along with them and help you to the top of the mountain. Right. And if not, they're going to drag you behind. I got drugged behind many times, and I thank those people for doing that. Right. This has been awesome. So thank you so much, Jamie, for being here. Like I said, this has been an amazing, amazing time. And thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story with my audience. But you heard her, everybody. If Jamie made you think, if she taught you something, if she made you smile, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.